Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Pro 2, joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
And me.
And me indeed. So today we're here to discuss the latest episode of Doctor Who. We did a episode on the 3 David Tennant and Catherine Tate return specials, and now we are continuing on with the new adventures of the 15th Doctor, who is bi-generated and is now just in his own as the Doctor. So this was like the first regular I don't know, what do you want to call it? Like loaded, like predictions and hyped levels of story. This is just, now we're back to standard, this is how we do Doctor Who. And it's, of course, Christmas special. We all thought that the specials would be a little bit more Christmassy than they ended up being. So it's kind of funny. But, yeah. So, who thought what about the special? Who wants to start with their general thoughts?
I'll go ahead and start, just in case I break in and out, just to kind of get it out of the way. So I watched this on Christmas Day with Alfie over the phone, which was a fun experience, and that probably made me enjoy it a little bit more. I thought this was fine. This was okay. I was kind of bummed by the end because I liked the first, 20 minutes a lot. I think, the first 20 minutes are some of the best Doctor Who ever. It's so fucking good. And then after they sing the song and they leave the goblin ship, it just keeps going. And it keeps going, and it keeps going, and I just get really, really bored. I think it completely loses steam after they leave the goblin ship, and they just kind of run out of things to do in the episode that are meaningful. I love the 15th Doctor. I think he's fantastic. I think he immediately steps into the role and is a lot of fun. I like these little glimpses of his personality that we're getting so far, potentially that he's some kind of scientific tinkerer, and that he's thinking about language as a science or a force in the universe, and he's got these gloves that he just messed around with that become the MacGuffin of the episode. I like that kind of stuff. I liked the companion actress a lot. I thought she did a good job, but I'm still kind of lost on what exactly she's supposed to be doing here. I didn't really get a sense of what the Doctor is interested about with her. I didn't really get a sense of why she was special. Not that she has to be special necessarily, but I just didn't see a lot of chemistry between her and the Doctor necessarily. So that kind of left me a little cold, especially by the end where she has that big revelation of oh shit, he's a time traveler. Where I didn't really feel much there. But it's a fun episode. It is an average episode of Doctor Who, which is more than I can say for a lot of what went down with the previous Doctor's tenure, unfortunately. I also really, really like just how much this episode functions as, if you've never seen Doctor Who before, this is the most approachable first Doctor Who episode since Eccleston's first episode. And I think it's better than Eccleston's first episode, honestly.
Yeah.
Just that run took a while to kind of get off its foot, but I feel like Doctor Who for the longest time had become so continuity jumbled that even Jodie's first episode didn't really feel like something you could just go into cold as much as this does, where this episode is not interested in new Doctor, new era, as much as it's interested in if a human being had never heard of Doctor Who before, this episode is the pitch for the series as a whole, and I loved that about it. I hope the writing kind of stays a little bit more consistent as time goes on, because this one did kind of peter out for me, but in general, I enjoyed it.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and give general thoughts because I'm gonna push back on you a bit there, Steve. I really, really like this. I think we can all agree that the Goblin Song is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
It's so good. I love it so much.
Fantastic.
So I really liked it up till that, and I kind of see what you're saying because it does almost feel like a bit of like that's the climax of the episode, and then everything else is just kind of finishing it up and feels like falling action because just how do you top that high? But I guess what I really liked about what happened after that point in the episode is it just took such like a dramatic turn that I was not expecting it to take. And again, this is just what I think Davies is really good at, that both Moffat and Chibnall, they have a bit of, but it's always like so grandiose with them, and with Davies it's just so simple a lot of the time, of just this like very humanistic story of, okay, well, here's this lady that is a foster mom, and she's like introduced as the greatest foster mom of all time and blah blah blah, like fucking Billy Batson, eat your heart out, right? But then you get this like almost It's a Wonderful Life-esque moment where you see what her life would be like without Ruby, and the fact that it's none of the like material conditions of their lives have changed. They're still in the same place. They're still not like, they're not absolutely broke, but they're definitely not rolling in money. She's still taking care of this baby around Christmas time, but just the way, the attitude, the approach, the heart is all ripped out of it because Ruby's been ripped out of their life. And now she's doesn't have this kind of drive, this kind of energy. She hasn't found her calling in raising and caring for all these orphans. And then, like, the one that really got me about that scene was just when he goes to check on the grandma, and, it went from being, like, this, like, kind of flirty old lady with a bit of sass to, like, just this really sad fucking bedridden woman that, like, doesn't even wake up properly when someone's talking to her. I don't know, man. That whole sequence, and then just the scene of the doctor being like, then why are you crying? Why are you? And like, it fucking got me. It hit me right in the goddamn heart. And it just kind of made the, going back and stopping this, like, dark future from happening just so impactful to me. I really, really, really dug it.
For me, I guess, there's always one who's in the middle. I'm kind of between. I liked it more than Steve, I think, but I don't quite like it as much as Ian. I think that's fun. I think the only time I've ever really been wowed by like a Doctor Who intro episode was Smith's first episode. I think 11th Hour is the one time we really cracked selling the show for as good as the show can be in the very first episode. I think there's good ones here and there. I agree with you guys. I don't really like Rose that much. I think Rose really, it's tough to get someone new into Doctor Who starting from there. Don't listen to what people on Twitter say. Eccleston's first season is pretty rough for a lot of the early parts. I like Tennant's first episode with Martha well enough. And I think a lot of his intro, like one-off specials, are pretty good intros. 11th Hour obviously is fantastic. I really like Capaldi's first episode, not with Clara. I think that one's pretty weak, but I like his first episode with Bill. I think is the first time in a while that they really tried to like reboot Doctor Who in kind of the sense of like, here's a new starting on point. But this is probably around the middle of the road for that, me, where I enjoyed a lot of the ideas at play. I think Ncuti is on par with Smith as him and maybe Troughton and maybe Baker being the only doctors who come out fully formed. Like, he does not need a season to tell his take on the Doctor. That's his take on the Doctor. He's not really going to change much, I think. I think he's pretty much got it out that this is how he's going to play the Doctor, and he just steals every fucking scene he's in. He's phenomenal. So I think that's one of the things that the series has going for it. I think he does a really good job with material that maybe isn't the most inspired in the world, but makes you really feel and makes you really sad. Like, I can't imagine any other Doctor pulling off that song scene as well as he does. Like, he just makes you... Because we all knew the Goblin song was going to be a thing, right? And I think this is a really good part about Davis. You didn't. You know, Ian's just one who's more advanced to spoiler stuff, right? Or just marketing in general. But I think Davies is really good at serving both of those counts. Because if you don't know about it, right, it's just a fun ride from beginning to end. But if you do keep up with like Doctor Who trailers and what's going on and stuff, because they tried to get this fucking song charting as like a Christmas #1, Davis is the best at understanding like how to weave brand and narrative, because this is so impressive as a writer to me. When you have that as a thing you know is coming, it's like, okay, the Goblin song bit's coming. We've all heard the bit of the Goblin song. Okay, it's fun, it's cute. But they didn't say a lick about the Doctor joining in and picking that. That's like a twist, that when he starts singing as well, and then it keeps going, and then Ruby gets involved. It's like, and then it's just reinvited the entire beat, even for people who knew that was coming. I think that's extremely, extremely clever to understand not just the medium you're writing in as a television show, but how to use those strengths in a storytelling sense for multiple different audiences. Like, that was just a little microcosm beat that's not that important to the whole beat of the episode. I agree with Steve that I think it's the highlight. But I think that was just a really good example of the difference of Davies as a showrunner, that even if I'm not been as impressed as I'd like to be by the material of the episodes, I always think the idea of Doctor Who is pretty safe in his hands, because he's one of the best creators I've seen at knowing how to run a business while also being a good writer. And I think that's kind of an underutilized skill set. You don't see a lot of overlap there. In general, more about the episode, though. I agree. I didn't really like Ruby's... I'm waiting for what her hook is going to be. At first, I thought it was a pretty intriguing idea of, like, almost doing a very Moffat-inspired... she's almost like one-to-one with Clara's backstory when you first kind of get the vibe of, oh, maybe she's going to be displaced with time and he's going to have to find her, and that's going to be the premise of the season kind of thing. But they kind of shelved that pretty quick. But I really liked the bad luck angle at first. I thought that was going to be like inherent to her as like a season mystery, or like part of her deal of like Doctor Who turning ordinary things of like someone with bad luck into a bigger drama, a bigger series. But no, that kind of got dropped as well, and what you're left with is just kind of like, oh, pretty like English girl again. And maybe that's just again to introduce the premise. We've got a pretty radical departure for the Doctor in some ways, but not in terms of character or anything like that. So maybe they want to ease people in to the series and try and keep that kind of balance there. But I wasn't too impressed with her. And something that stuck out with me is extremely sloppy, and maybe this is something that will get paid off in future, but I think this is probably one of the weakest the companion discovers the TARDIS scenes I've seen in a long time. It felt really weird, and like the beats are there, but like how it was edited, and part of me makes it think that that's almost intentional, because it doesn't get much fanfare for it. But just as it is, I did walk myself feeling like, is that really selling like the adventure and mystique of the Doctor with that moment? Is normally always given a little bit more, I don't know, like pizzazz. And I know Davies can do it still. Like he's got shots like that in this series. Like the director for this episode wasn't the worst thing in the world, just like solid, like modern Doctor Who. But that scene in particular really kind of felt like a microcosm of my issues with that, where the beats are here for this. The effective thing, and I won't go on too much longer because I want to talk about this with you, Ian, because I like the wonderful life moment in the episode as well. I think it's an interesting concept, but it just, there was a lot of bits under this episode that I enjoyed for what it was, and I didn't have a bad time with it, but I feel like there was some like, it's almost like foundational errors that kind of kneecap it a little bit from just being like a great solid episode of Doctor Who. There's a lot of choices in this where I'm just kind of raising my eyebrows like, was that intentional, or is that like a mistake, or like, are they too rushed because they tried to cram in too much filming at once? Like, so those are my kind of thoughts on it. Kind of solid middle of the road episode of Doctor Who, but I was hoping for more of a banger opening.
Before we go too far in, I do want to pick up on what you said about the editing, because I mentioned this to you when we were talking about it. I thought that the editing in this episode was really wonky and really bad in places. There is this weird recurring visual problem in the episode where it seems like someone has like artificially panned and zoomed on someone's face to just like really last minute throw in certain reaction shots that they maybe didn't have before when they were filming, and it's super distracting because after you notice it once, you start noticing it all over the place where it's like, why does that person's face look that way? Why is this frame suddenly in a lower definition than this other frame? I don't understand who decided to edit some of these reactions because they don't feel natural at all. It was very, very strange, and it was very distracting. And then when I rewatched it to talk about it tonight, I noticed it even more, where it just kind of felt like every few minutes, it's like they had really solid sequences already filmed and planned, but there were so many like little interpersonal moments where like important lines of dialogues needed to be added in or something, or reactions needed to be edited in somewhere that they just didn't get in the principal photography, and they didn't have the time to go back and reshoot them, so they just like inserted in weird frames that felt completely out of place with the rest of the scene. It was very strange.
I did not notice that at all, but I mean, and it's not like I haven't watched this multiple times now. I think I've watched it like 2 or 3 times. I've watched the fucking Goblin song like 17 times.
Goblin song has been on loop, yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just, the fucking balls to, let's try to get a song about eating a baby to chart around Christmas is the best fucking move of all time. And I love it. Did it work? Did it chart? Does anyone know?
I think it got pretty close, but no, it didn't get as high as it wanted to.
Damn.
It did get in, like the top 5 though.
Oh, well, hey, that's still pretty fucking good. The fucking Goblin song. It just, I don't know. But Steve, no, I did not notice any of what you were talking about, and it's not like I've not watched this multiple times, so that's just me.
It's just funny because whenever Doctor Who comes back, it's always been like, I've been so used to it being like radio silent for so much long in the BBC, and like because I'm not going to be in the UK much longer, maybe I'll be more like you guys. I am kind of glad I got that little bit of a taste where, because when David Tennant was on, it was everywhere, and like, you couldn't go a single second without turning on and getting an advert or an interview with like someone on a radio show while you're driving the car. And then once Moffat took over, there was a little bit of that, especially around the 50th. And then after the 50th, that just stopped. That just dropped off. There was nothing for Capaldi's era. There was nothing even for Jodie's era, aside from like the controversy of like, a woman doctor, what? Then they got talk shows, and then after that, it just stopped. But the moment Davies comes back, it's like, and David Tennant's on BBC One, and now BBC Unleashed is doing the Doctor Who things, and now Ncuti Gatwa, Millie Gibson are talking about singing the Goblin song, and they're not even talking about the episode, Ian. They're literally just talking about recording the fucking song on the radio. This is how much Davies has like a vice grip on fucking England's fucking marketing. It's insane. It's everywhere. It's like overnight, instantly.
I don't know, man. The dude knows what he's doing. It is pretty crazy when you think about it. I don't know. I'm impressed. So what did we all think of the Goblin song? Is it the greatest musical masterpiece of this generation?
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
You know, 110%. I mean, this should win a Grammy.
I want to ask you, Ian, because you were a fan of you like the Rasputin master bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, it's kind of weird because that one I liked much less than this, for what it's worth, because that one just felt more like I think that you start to see this a lot in the MCU as well, where they know when they're making these things that if they can just do one scene to be, as the kids say nowadays, out of pocket and have it go viral, that it'll just get, more marketing, more buzz around the thing. So, like, She-Hulk did this when she's, like, twerking and shit. And you kind of just, like, all fucking Hawkeye, the series, had this with the Steve Rogers musical and shit.
Or the Agatha song from WandaVision.
Yeah, it was Agatha all along. Yeah, just, like, all of them just have this thing that's like, clearly just meant to be, like, a grab. And it used to be some, like, absurd shit that like the director or writer or whatever would have to fight to get to be kept in. Like, it reminds me of Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder having to like yell at Mel Brooks that the scene of the monster and him singing "Putting on the Ritz" was absolutely necessary and would become iconic. And then Mel Brooks is like, if you're willing to fight that hard for it, fine, we'll leave it in. And it's the one thing everyone remembers about that movie. But now it's just kind of become like, this very pre-packaged way of doing things to get clout for your series. That being said, I did really like it here, and I begrudgingly I liked it with the Master for no other reason than it was just so goddamn absurd.
I think.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say. I think what you said, Alfie, earlier about the song that really makes it hit is like if you know the Goblin song is coming, then you're kind of prepared for it and you're excited. But no one fucking saw the Doctor and Ruby singing along coming. And the second that the beat drops and he starts singing, I fucking lost my mind. That was so good.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic. But I just like because we got a hint as well that that's not going to be the last of the musical Doctor Who stuff, and Davey says he's been using this season, like the bi-generation was an idea he's had for a long time, and a lot of the other things are ideas he's had for a long time that he didn't get to do before. And so musical Doctor number, he had like a thing of like, he gave the Master a musical number of like the I can't decide, like that. And he's always wanted the Doctor to kind of get his run back on that, and he didn't get a chance to, and then they did another Master musical number. So, like, finally, the Doctor... I think the season finale of the series, because we get, like, a Master tease at the end of the giggle, may just be a dance-off between the Goku and the Master.
Let's go! It's Saturday Night Fever, but it's Doctor Who!
I legitimately couldn't believe, like...
We've gotten that tease with them in the 70s with the 70s outfits, so
it's true. They meet the Bee Gees and it becomes a whole thing.
Saturday Night Fever is based on the Bee Gees seeing the Master and the Doctor have an epic dance-off.
It's like that scene in Back to the Future. It's like, it's me, your cousin. Listen to this.
You know that new sound you was looking for? Someone, I think it was like a Cracked video from years ago where he's like, can we just talk about how impressive it is that he was able to perfectly recreate the entire song that he only heard half of through the phone?
We should review Back to the Future. That movie fucking rules. Anyway.
It's a good time. It's a good time. Yeah, but I don't know. I did fucking dig this shit out of the Goblin song. Yeah, just Ruby and the Doctor singing is really good. The thing I really liked about it, especially when they start singing, is this is more directed at Ruby's lines than it is at the Doctor's, but like, I love how actually improvised it sounds. Like, I could honestly believe that they just kind of knew they were going to come on set and have to sing and not really know what they were going to have to rhyme. They were just going to have to do it on the spot. Because, like, Ruby's like, it's good to greet you, it's good to meet you, good to greet you, it's good to diddly-deet you. It's just a really funny, like, you know, sounds like someone just trying to make up rhymes and sing on the spot, and it just kind of works believably within the context of the scene. It was really fun.
The other main bit of the episode that I think is kind of the narrative hook, and where like the Steve kind of feels like the momentum gets lost and you really liked it, is what do you guys think of basically the idea of the goblins are kind of responsible, they're also kind of tangential to like the idea at play of the coincidences and the people that are found and then taking the child away as a foundling and that whole sequence and how that's resolved, and the big thing of like Chibnall, Davies really loved the Chibnall bits, I guess. He really liked the idea because he is doubling, tripling down on that shit.
I mean, it's interesting. I think I just have respect for Davies, even though this is, like, the one time you and I talked about this, Alfie, of, like, man, you just gotta fucking get rid of this shit. This is so dumb. But, like, I do have respect for Davies for just doubling down of, like, okay, I'm not gonna just outright contradict it, retcon it, get over it. We've got that line in the giggle, it was like, I've made a jigsaw of your history, which throws into question how much of it is going to stay, how much of it is true. But it's still ultimately, like, you know, it's still as canon as the writers want it to be at any given time now. And so I don't hate the idea of the Doctor being a foundling. That was never the problem with it, right? So I think it's kind of cool to you know, cherry pick what you like about it and kind of go off on that direction, and to have that, you know, to have the Doctor empathize and or not empathize, sympathize with Ruby on that level and kind of see part of himself in her, I think is really cool. And also it's kind of interesting to parallel it with other times that Doctor Who stories have done this. Kind of, what if the Doctor never was, or what if the Doctor was defeated? And, you know, that happened in the Davies era originally with Donna. There's that whole Turn Left episode that happened with the in the Matt Smith era, that was played with a lot with Amy at first, and then again with Clara. So it's kind of interesting to see that paralleled and done just on a much smaller, again, just very human scale of, if Ruby was never in this lady's life, it would not have changed a single thing about how her life is and how she is living day to day. But it changed, like, just fundamentally who she was as a person, who their family was. And again, that the one that just fucking broke my heart is when he goes to talk to Cherry Sunday, which is the most ridiculous name. Goes to talk to Cherry Sunday, and she's like, "We were never that blessed to have a child in this house." And it's like, that's so sad, man. Oh.
Yeah, the part I liked about that is how the actress portrayed it the most. Like the quick shift of going to like very exuberant, very kind of like stereotypical happy English mom, and then just not even like a bawling sadness, but just like an emptiness, just kind of like a shell, a husk of like the person you had before. I think that's pretty effective. I think my main thing with it all is I think it's all a little too... We labor on that pretty hard for a decent chunk of the episode. I want to say like around 15-20 minutes.
No.
It's just like... It felt like that at the time.
I mean, I think if you look... I mean, it felt like that because it's emotionally devastating. But, like, literally, if you look at the runtime, he goes to the kitchen following the crack, sees that Ruby's gone, and then he is in the past to get her probably within about 3 to 5 minutes.
With that segment, I'm also including when they come back home with the baby after the goblin, like that.
Okay.
Including that whole segment in the house as part of that same scene.
Okay, I thought you were talking about just specifically like
wallowing
in the sadness.
No, not just the sadness. It's just like that whole bit gets very. We're in one location now and we're talking about a lot of information that we're not really getting anything new. It's a lot of like explaining things. The new thing is the disappearance of Ruby, and then the audience can pick on that relatively quickly. It feels like it takes the Doctor a little bit too long to get there, even with that. But prior to that, once we're going through the coincidences and everything, and we're having to deal with the baby and stuff, it feels like there's just like an energy of the series kind of sucked out of it a little bit. It's like we had the high like we had, and obviously you're not going to be able to keep that high going, but normally with Doctor Who, I guess, at like its best, with those kind of like removing the shapes, you get more of like a one-on-one between the companion, or you get a little bit more character building. Did it feel like we really explored Ruby and the Doctor? We've discovered each other. This is our new dynamic. Past the initial like threat, it felt like we were more so, okay, here's the next thing. And so that also contributed to me not really getting what Ruby's deal is, right? Like, you've got stuff with Clara, and you've got stuff with Amy, and you've got stuff with Martha, and even like once that immediate danger ends, they get like a little bit of quiet down, maybe they're like huddled down to something. And I think that's a really important, you don't have to do that, but those always work to really like selling you, this is what this companion thinks and feels of this situation, this is how this all goes. Because we don't get that then, and then Ruby's like erased from existence. There's like, we don't really know a lot of her decision making, a lot of how she thought and feels, and I think that is my guess for why I was a little bit out of the episode from that point onwards.
I agree with all that. I feel like that was my big problem with it, where I just sort of felt like everything we were supposed to understand about Ruby either came in really quick spurts early on and never really got picked up on, or we were ahead of the show as far as figuring it out by the end, and the episode was just kind of belaboring the point. One thing that I really liked early on that I feel like the episode kind of wastes the potential of is the whole idea of Ruby being just targeted by bad luck. In there is something really interesting in the episode about language and coincidences. And I like the weird sort of scientific mumbo jumbo of the goblins creating instances of coincidences that kind of compound on each other until you get to like a breaking point. On just like a thematic level, though, I feel like they're mixing their metaphors between the goblins causing accidents and all of this being about coincidences, because one does not necessitate the other, but they're kind of conflating the two. And Ruby, to me, early on, was a lot more alive and interesting when it was just accidents and not coincidences. And I was really weirded out early on when the Doctor meets her at the club, and holy shit, such a good opening way for these two to meet. It's so much fun watching him just like dance in the club with like his kilt on and everything, and he's clearly the life of the party, but he's still being the Doctor and he's still investigating. And then he has that first interaction with Ruby, and she says that she's clumsy, and he's like, no, it's worse than that. And he just fucking walks away. And there's... I really, really don't like that, because it doesn't segue into anything as far as her reacting to that declaration. And it also doesn't like thematically connect to much, because when you get to the idea of the goblins being about coincidences, the accidents thing doesn't really feel like it has to be accidents anymore. It's just a very strange metaphor to like start with as your hook, and then evolve it into something that feels like it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to it, and is almost less interesting. And by the time you get to the point where It's a Wonderful Life Ruby and she disappears, I feel like Alfie said, I feel like it's kind of just belaboring these realizations that we, the audience, have had the entire time. On a certain level, the idea that Ruby's never had to deal with time travel, so she's realizing that the Doctor's a time travel at the end, is great as a first episode bit, which is part of what I like. But we, as the audience, by that point in the episode, are never really thinking at any point, hey, the Doctor hasn't time traveled this episode yet. Or like, hey, What's the where at what point is the Doctor going to explain to Ruby that he can go back in time? It seems like a really strange structural choice to have the entire finale of your episode hinge on the Doctor going back into the past, not structure it in a way where it's like a big reveal or a big solving the problem of the episode moment, and instead just treat it like the device it usually is, and then have your companion's hook be like, oh shit, this is blowing my mind. Like the episode structure just kind of falls apart there. It's really strange. And I think that's partly why it drags and why I don't like resonate with Ruby as much as I should, because I just sort of feel like they got really sloppy writing a lot of her stuff, and I think it just comes down to they have a lot of ideas for her and they're throwing a lot of things at the wall, but it needed another pass. Someone needed to connect these dots better.
I guess I just didn't react that way at all. I didn't feel like any of it felt sloppy. It just kind of all flowed naturally to me in my experience watching it. I don't know. It was different strokes, different folks.
That's something though, Ian, that I do want to highlight, because I think this is why if we're taking like analysis of like Davies in comparison to other Who writers, is I think that's very much. You brought up a good point earlier where you mentioned, like, in comparison to Chibnall and Moffat, he's very simple. He's going to focus on just the aftermath of a family. He's not going to focus on the world changing from the disappearance of Ruby. Like, say if this was a Moffat episode, there'd be like this big intertwining narrative, and it'd be very tightly constructed, and it would all lead back to the very first time that the Doctor met Ruby would be like the closing of that time loop and the resolve. Like he'd fight coincidence by the Doctor making his own coincidence, and the premise would be like, I've made this companion to save this companion by making me finding her a bigger coincidence than the goblins, or some shit like that, right? It would all resolve very neatly. It'd all be this big bow, and it would be very emotional, very cool, and very epic. But there's like a structure and a thoughtfulness to that. Whereas with Davies, he doesn't really care about that stuff in the same way. His climaxes and his timey-wimey stuff are all kind of means to an end. I think of like the Doctor becoming Jesus to blast the Master at the end, right? The point for him isn't the Doctor doing that. The point is he wants the Doctor to have a moment where he can hug and hold the Master and say, I forgive you. That's what he wants that part to get there for. The bit of the timey-wimey stuff is irrelevant to him. Whereas I think a lot of other Doctor Who writers, for better or for worse, like you said, different strokes for different folks, care more about the mechanics of it, or find interesting formulas like medium beats to do with it. Like Moffat wants to explore the structure of a TV show. He did that a lot in Sherlock. He does that a lot in Dracula. Whereas Davies, I feel, is just more so like, no, TV's pretty figured out. I like TV as TV. Here's this played a little bit more straight and played a little bit more forward.
Just to parse this real quick, Ian, before you answer, I do want to point out here, I agree with what you're saying about Davies versus Moffat, but my criticism of the way the episode is structured towards the end doesn't fall in line with that, because my problem is the drama Davies is going for is structured poorly, not the structure of how he gets here via time travel logic is done poorly, because I don't give a shit about that. I'm more with RTD on that stuff than I am with Moffat, because I don't need a plot reason for everything to happen. I mean, like, if he wants the emotional realization that Ruby realizes the Doctor is a time travel to hit, he needed to write the episode in a way where that was actually the dramatic end beat, and I feel like he didn't write that well.
I don't really have an argument against it. I think you've made your point pretty solidly, and like it's hard to refute in any way. I'm just saying I think it worked for me in a way it may just not have for you, because I didn't feel like any of it was unearned or I guess just unearned is what I'm gonna sit with on that one. I don't know. I guess I'm a little bummed. It feels like we've been pretty negative on this episode this whole fucking time, and I'm feeling like I'm sitting here trying to defend it, and my defense is, no, but it's good though, guys.
I don't want it to. Go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna say I had fun with it. Like I enjoyed watching the episode. I enjoyed the experience of watching it, but just like we're doing a review, and like I have problems with how it's written. That's just kind of what I'm coming down to.
What I did like, I guess, to shift to something more positive then, just kind of on a craft level, is this uses the same cinematographer and color grader as the Chibnall era when they brought him on. And while I think the street scenes need a little bit more touching up if we're going to keep going back to that, I think kind of once we're on the ship and when we're on the rooftops and when we're in the club especially, is it all feels very prestige compared to how Doctor Who normally is. Steve, you mentioned problems over the editing and stuff, but just in terms of like color, how bright stuff is, how Shooty's outfits keep changing, and kind of his when we get that
and they're
shot
all
when he's
so
going
good too.
Right, and-
every outfit he wears is just peak fashion.
and when he goes to the church in the snow, it's like a really beautiful shot. We get like a close up of his face when he's in tears and everything like that. Like all of that is like really good Doctor Who imagery that I'm really excited for. Is I want to see what the villains start looking like. I want to see the Daleks. I want a new Dalek design shot like this because I just want to see that imagery. Like it feels like we've been a long time since we've seen them. Shot with a little bit of cash behind it. The Chibnall era had some of that, but a lot of his Daleks as well were like not necessarily like redesigns. They were like either put together Daleks or Daleks being the police or what have you. And then the Cybermen were like the Moffat designed Cybermen and the Time Lords and stuff like that. There's like a little bit of a compromise. I really want to see the mind behind Dalek, the episode, introduce not just them but the other villains, right? Like if we bring the Weeping Angels back, or if we bring back the Sontarans or whoever, I want to see what Shooty looks like going against some of those old favorites and like how that changes how things are shot. Because another positive I want to give is the practical effects for the goblins and stuff have been fantastic. I think they look great. The Goblin King especially is a practical thing, is incredible. Like that's just a puppet, and I'm like, that's fantastic. And I really hope we keep that up with leaning into using this Disney money, using this Disney talent of these people who have been trained on Star Wars with Force Awakens and Last Jedi, coming over to Doctor Who and having a crack at some of our monsters, right? Like in fact, going back to the Daleks, the Dalek squid creature, like inside as like the puppets already look pretty good in the Davis era, but like if we can put even more into that thing and get it to start emoting a little bit more and just pain and writhing and agony, like all of that stuff is really exciting for the future. That this episode sets up that I really hope Shooty's era lasts a long time and we get to like hit a lot of these different beats, because I think it's a really good chance to... We've reinvigorated the TARDIS, we've reinvigorated the Doctor, could still lose a little bit more on the Companion, but like if we can keep doing this to all the other elements of the show, I'm going to be really excited. Like every week when a new thing shows up, I'm like, oh, this is that take on this. Like it's a good place to be in where we're so focused on the new, aside from nostalgia. And obviously bringing back old things is inherently nostalgia, but I feel like it's a way to refresh that in a sense that can be just as original as the Daleks were when they first came up in the Eccleston stuff.
Mm-hmm. Man, I fucking love the goblin designs in this. They're just so good. Yeah. And then, like, the Janus goblin is the fucking best looking thing ever.
It's so good.
Steve could fix her.
Good. So good. I loved all of the effects.
I wanna talk about this because someone fucking put this in the comments of the Goblin song. It's like, so one of the lyrics is, "We can feast 3 days at least on a single baby." What the fuck is like the anatomy?
3 days.
Like shit, man.
That's funny.
That's a long time. Like when you really break that down, holy shit.
Oh no, believe me, they broke down that baby.
Baby toes and baby blood.
I mean, visually the whole episode like generally looks really, really good, and I feel like they do a really good job of highlighting all of the fun, colorful outfits that Chuti's wearing. Something that is a common problem with a lot of TV shows and movies, and this is just kind of a historical problem. It's just like when you're working on something that has a lot of white actors for a very, very long period of time, then you do kind of run into these issues of like not understanding how to light black people and like how to make them feel like they're coming out from the background, that you're having the right level of contrast between them and their clothes and stuff. And it's something that, like, when you watch movies like Nope with Jordan Peele, or really any Jordan Peele movie, it's something he's really passionate about the idea of like photography as an invention was kind of skewed towards light being used to show white people versus black people. And so like film has adopted that language for a very long time of just like not being able to shoot black people very well unless you're a black director. And I feel like immediately 15 doesn't have that problem at all. Like, he always looks dynamic. He always pops out of every scene. It helps that Chuti's just such a fun, charismatic actor, but they do seem really like conscious of like they don't want to fall into this issue of not looking visually striking to match the energy he's giving, in a way that I think you really have to if he's going to be your doctor for a foreseeable future. And like Moffat's definitely got some like cringe lines in the Christmas specials about like the thing in The Giggle where Martha comments about him coming in like all different colors. Like there's some like weird cringe dialogue here and there, but you can definitely tell there's an earnest desire from RTD to want to explore something different and be as respectful and good about that as he possibly can. And I think, at least from like a directing standpoint, even though he didn't direct the episode, there is a lot of conscience played to that to make us feel like we're with this guy. We're not necessarily in his head all the time, but we're with him and we appreciate him, and the camera has reverence for him.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think you can kind of tell that the same team that was doing the Chibnall stuff is behind the camera on this one, because they're just wow. The upgrade in production quality is just insane. As you looked through the two things, you guys talked about it a little bit. Like, the set of the Goblin ship is so fucking cool, but like just that reveal shot of going up the ladder and like, you know, it's a rope ladder, so you're kind of somewhat prepared for it, but just going through the clouds and you just get that epic reveal of the fucking pirate ship with wing sails, like out of fucking Treasure Planet. Is so goddamn cool. I got such a kick out of that.
The doctor just hops on the ladder too and just starts talking. It's so exciting.
That's so good. And then, yeah, again, I just really liked all the running around the Goblin ship, and like, it just, you know, Ruby talks about it, but it does feel really claustrophobic in there because the ship's not made for people their size. And then just the Doctor, like, just being fucking ridiculous again is just so much fun. It reminds me a lot of some of the Matt Smith bits with like the "of course I speak baby." It's like, I'm trying to learn the language of rope.
Stormageddon.
Yeah. But just like it's only the Doctor you can get away with that. Like, if you put that in a Batman thing, it sounds like something someone would try to write for Batman, but it just wouldn't work, you know? I'm learning the language of rope. Like, it doesn't fit the same, but just like the, oi, I'm learning the language of rope right over here.
I love that.
It's so good.
I 100% agree. Like, when he started talking like that, I fell in love with that dude. I'm like, so he's a scientist and a philosopher. I love this.
It's so good.
I love it.
Yeah, that was a great time, though. I did really, really enjoy the way that all came together. Do you think we'll get a... I guess we have to, because he died in the last Jodie one. I was going to say, do you think we'll get a new master, or do you think they'll bring back one of the previous actor? But never mind, that's gone.
I really want him to do... because he didn't come back for the 60th, and he's kind of campaigning a little bit for it. I really want him to do, if we're bringing back old faces thing, I want him to do The Master Comes Back, but it's Matt Smith playing the Master.
That's a weird idea.
he's talked about in a thing. He says like, if I come back, I don't really want to do a multi-doctor story anymore. I want to do the Master comes back, and his self-hatred, self-love for the Doctor has reached such a level. He now wears the face of the one Doctor he didn't get to meet.
That's interesting.
Oh, that's cool. I really like that idea.
So that's what I want. I obviously, I'm sure the casting will be good if they do that. But the moment he said that and people started making fan art of it and shit, I was like, oh man, if the Master came back and it was fucking Smith, that would be the craziest thing ever.
Well, remember in his first series, he had that adventure where they were on that planet and they were like these weird goop people, and they made like a clone Doctor, and he played the bad guy in that. That was so good.
And then he had the Cyberman, so he's always been playing kind of like evil versions already, so it would fit with his Doctor of like, of all the Doctors for the Master to take their face, this Doctor who never got to meet him but was always kind of like treading on the edge of being turned evil could be really fucking cool.
I could
be here for that.
That's a cool idea. I like that.
One other thing I do want to talk about, though, that I did actually like is something Alfie mentioned earlier when we were talking about the whole foundling thing, because I mean everyone at this point I feel like knows that we've talked about the timeless child and our problem with that, but
I don't think we've actually done an episode. I think we just have all no. I think everyone has just universally agreed that it's a really bad idea.
Didn't we not do an episode on the Flux? I feel like maybe we did.
We've only talked about it like independently off call. I don't think we've actually done anything talking about a single Jodie special in and of itself.
Oh wow! All right, so it's bad, but in case you didn't know, it's bad. Yeah, I agree with this idea of like you want to just like pick and choose the things that work instead of like just outright retconning someone else's thing, which is, I mean, that whole principle is fine by me. I think that's how you have to do it. But I do really like this idea that one of my fears with 15 when we started him off in the Giggle was they separated the Doctors so that 14 could work on all of his baggage with Donna, and that 15 could be out in the universe and just be the happy-go-lucky Doctor. And part of my fear with that was you'd get kind of stale if he was just a fun, campy Doctor running around too long, and I wanted him to have at least like a hint of his own unique dark edge to him. And I feel like when you get to the thing at the end of this episode where he relates to Ruby because they're both foundlings on a level, I like that that sort of angst or insecurity is still kind of there with him. That even if he's the Doctor that got over all the baggage of the Flux and the Time War or whatever else, that doesn't mean that we aren't still going to play up some of the drama of like, yeah, this guy doesn't know his family. This guy's past is a mystery, and he's a little bit of a sad loner about that whole thing. And I think it's a neat contrast to have the finale of the episode be these two characters bonding over the fact that they were alone when they were born, and paralleling that to the beginning of the episode where you meet the Doctor and he's dancing in a room full of people that love him, and you immediately meet Ruby with someone who has a good, happy home life. I really, really like that. I like that you don't have to go from being alone to being with family as just like sort of a happy way to end the episode, but rather sort of be like, even if you are content with where you are now, there are still these sort of lingering things that are just kind of below the surface.
Yeah, that'll work for me as well. I think that's the one thing that was missing from a lot of that stuff with the Timeless Child is, even if it is just ridiculous continuity, randomness, and he did it early with the Flux as well, with just this idea of whatever it is, if you can ground it in an emotional beat, you can make it work. And that was just what was missing, because we didn't get any grounding of any of these revelations with Jodie in an emotional beat. And that's not her fault, that's entirely the staff's fault, because she would have crushed it if they gave her a chance. She's a phenomenal actress. But because they didn't get to do any with Jodie, it leaves a lot of that open for First Tenant getting that great moment in Wild Blue Yonder, and now Shooty with this. We get to play up these ideas of having the Doctor find something to have an emotional reaction to. He's such a character, especially now that we have no idea how much older Shooty is now from the last time we've seen him. He seems completely in tune with himself. He seems completely fresh, and like he's got all this healing from Tennant. So if you wanted to put on your power scaling cap, right, you'd say this is the oldest Doctor, and he's the most emotionally mature Doctor. He is the Doctor at the peak, the prime. We haven't seen a Doctor this competent before. And we can talk about something as well as what do you guys think of this new sonic screwdriver?
I fucking dig it. I hate you both. I hate you both for hating fun. You don't deserve fun things. Just go eat your fucking flavorless oatmeal made with milk, made with water instead of milk, and just sit and brood, you fucking useless fucks. God damn you. How dare you shit on all the cool things that we get. I hate both of you so much.
I liked 14's redesigned sonic screwdriver a lot, even though I didn't like the Fort shield on it.
No, see, here's the problem with the Sonic, right? Is full stop. We peaked with that direction with Matt Smith. It's never gotten better since Matt Smith's Sonic. Okay, the fact like that long cylindrical shape, the pop, the little clampy jaw things, and everything else has been chasing that ever since. To the point where you've got Capaldi with like this basically lightsaber looking thing that's just too big and clunky and weird. And then 14th is kind of whatever. It's basically if you just had 10s and 11s and gave him a baby that's also a Green Lantern ring. I really like that they're just exploring different weird things to do with it and just not trying to go down and redo perfection in Smiths and just letting him have a weird one, which is why I like it so much, because it reminds me of my favorite classic Sonic, which is 6th. Because he doesn't have a sonic screwdriver, he has a sonic lance, and it's like this weird square remote thing with like this transparent red taper on the end of it. And it's nothing like any of the others, and I just think it's cool to do something different and unique. And whether or not it works in and of itself is, you know, its own discussion. But I like that it's got the balls to try something new as opposed to try to chase perfection.
No, I agree completely. I think you're 100% right, and I completely stand by that. In principle, absolutely. Do something different with the sonic screwdriver every time. I'm here for that. This one was a miss.
Alfie, do you hate it? Do you hate everything about it?
I don't hate it because I do think I like when because it's an alien device, right? Like you can take it in any shape or form or structure you can. And I like the Doctor Who mentality of, because I was a kid, I remember when I didn't have the money for the actual sonic screwdriver, I'd take the TV remote and use that as a sonic screwdriver. I think that's what's kind of drawing on is the same reason behind like the sonic glasses. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, any kid can use this, is the idea of like, if the kid doesn't have the toy, you can just use the remote and pretend it's the sonic screwdriver. I wish it was a little different color. I think the colors don't particularly blend they look a little too toyetic. I think you could get some nicer sheets. I think that's been the thing, especially that's been missing since Smiths. Smiths was very classy. Smiths looked like an aristocrat's tool. It had a nicer bronze finish to it. It had a nice level handle and stuff like that. Like it looked like an instrument. Past that, and even Tennant's kind of has this, is they do look like they are toys in terms of like the paint job. And normally you got customs and stuff that have like more metallic finishes that look better. I think that's my main. The shape is whatever. I'll get used to it. I wish they did a cleaner paint job, and I wish it didn't look so like toy blow. I wish there was a little different twist to that.
Rotten hell. That's all I have to say to you. Well, I don't know. I like it. It's fun. Let Doctor Who be fun. Damn you.
That's maybe the best thing I think we can say about all of these episodes, regardless of whether some people liked some versus others. When these specials started, and you got 3 weeks of Doctor Who back to back, that was like the most excited I was for something to do on a Saturday in months, if not like years, because I fucking loved coming home early in the afternoon to turn on a new episode of Doctor Who. And then when there was that gap between the third special and the Christmas special, I was immediately kind of depressed because there was this time where I'm like, oh, there's no new Doctor Who this week. And then after this special aired, I went online and said, okay, this was great. Now, when's the next episode of Doctor Who? Is it next Saturday? And they said May, and my heart just broke a little bit.
No, I feel ya. It is. Alfie and I have talked about this, of just that like difference between the British like sensibility of television and the American one, where like, you know, new season of a CW show or whatever comes out, it's like 26 almost hour-long episodes. So it's like going for half the year, and then it's really only gone for, you know, a couple months basically at a time. Whereas like now Doctor Who's back for 3 episodes, and then it's like 2 years before you get it again, you fucks. Like, holy shit.
Well, and like, but like, feel like the flip too of like between the Jodie era and the current era, where like I didn't even realize the Flux was on until it was basically over.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like going into this new era of like it's gonna be 5 goddamn months before I get new Doctor Who, and I'm gonna count every second of it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's effective. It means that the show's doing a good job because you want to see more. You
Exactly.
Just gotta wait and wait and wait
and wait.
Yeah. How many do we know how many episodes the new season's gonna be yet?
I think
8.
it's 10.
Okay.
8.
10? Okay.
It might be 8 and 2 specials.
Okay.
That might be what it is.
Oof, that's not a lot. They better be the fucking most banger episodes of all time. Damn.
We'll see. Again, I think they might be that counter plan to this is Davies loves the spin-offs, and we haven't had anything announced yet, but we've had a lot of stuff. We're absolutely fucking getting a unit show. Like that is, they built that set to fucking last. They're not gonna throw that set away. They introduced a fucking talking robot companion.
The Flinks.
They're gonna do it.
The Flinks is the best. We love the Flinks.
I would bet money on the fact that they're gonna do a fucking unit spin-off something, and that's gonna be the new Torchwood or whatever.
Which I think is what Torchwood was meant to be in the first place, but they just didn't want to touch the classic stuff.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
I don't normally. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say anything. Go ahead.
And I was just gonna say I don't normally have like fan theories that I want to come true, but I was thinking about this the other day, and I know they're never gonna fucking do it. But what if they do give Tennant his own spin-off, and it's just like a mini-series? And the end of the miniseries is that he becomes the Valyard and he comes back in and faces 15.
That'd be fucking sick. I don't give a shit, man.
Imagine Tennant playing the Valyard and putting the Doctor on trial. I feel like that'd be pretty fucking cool.
So, for all our genius ideas and all our genius critiques, Ian is proven right, as me and Steve's only original story ideas are bring back Matt Smith and bring back David Tennant.
Pretty much!
Correct.
It's interesting.
So really?
Because like, there's all this speculation and fear that David Tennant, you know, he's been set off on his own and blah, 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 blah. But, like, I remember in the lead up to the specials airing, David Tennant said, yeah, this is it for me. I'm not ever coming back again. And, you know, I'll put that right up there with fucking, like, Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman. No, wait, even better. I'll put it up there with fucking, like, Mark Hamill, who's been done playing the Joker, like, 17 fucking times. This is the last time I'm gonna do it.
Lying his ass off about Spider-Man.
Yeah. But, like, legitimately, though, if that's true, that leaves it in a very interesting place where, you know, you've just got this Doctor eternally out there, you know, getting better, so to speak. and I don't know. It's just, that leaves things in an interesting spot for whether or not we ever see him again, and whether or not he shows up with Shuti. I'm kind of doubtful we'd get that far, but I don't know. It could be interesting. The Valiard does need to happen. That's the thing I want to happen so bad. Like, I think we talked about this. I don't think we talked about it on call, but I'll fucking just throw this out there. That was my pitch for how to fix everything that Chibnall did. Was I wasn't gonna like directly contradict it. I was just gonna basically overwrite it with new, better ideas. And instead of the fugitive doctor being like an earlier incarnation, I was gonna have it be that the fugitive doctor was the Valiard, and that Gallifrey was caught in a fixed point in time, that the destruction of Gallifrey had to happen, but the Time Lords kept trying to make sure it didn't. So, like, initially Gallifrey's burnt the Time War, but then they fucked with shit to make the Doctor save them. And then the fucking Master killed every single Time Lord on Gallifrey somehow. And then they come back another way. And that was just my fucking premise, was the Valiard was going to be wrapped up all in the Time Lords trying to, stand against time itself and make sure that they survived a fixed point.
The Doctor's got so many offshoots of himself running around at this point. I feel like you could just, point any...
You cut out a little bit when you said that. Hello? Steve?
I think
Can you hear me?
There we go. You're back.
Yeah. I thought the goblins got you.
No. They're gonna feed me to weird goblins and sing a song.
Do you think that they can only feast 3 days on a baby, or do you think it scales up, but like getting a full grown human is just a pain, because it's like when you go to Costco and you buy perishables, you just can't eat it all fast enough?
I feel like it's more like the whole, you don't want your deer to be scared when you kill it because it affects the taste of the meat. So, the babies, because they're pure and innocent and tiny and they're not afraid, have, the best tasting meat or something.
Okay.
Anyway, on this week's episode of How to Eat Babies...
I was just very frequently in with the frequent use of baby meat in that sentence.
Moving on. You're in the wrong group.
One thing I want to say, because I guess this is a fun thing while we've got a seasoned Doctor Who ahead of us, to maybe speculate a little bit, because there's a big cliffhanger that gets a lot of focus at the end of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
My thing isn't related to that, but we can talk about the weird old lady in a second. I think, and I don't know if it's going to be...
Oh, now Alfie cut out.
Oh no, am I cutting out?
Yeah, but
you're back.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. The goblins tried to get me too, because I'm going to spoil their plans. My biggest structural thing that I'm just praying is something that he's waiting on, because it's a fucking banger-ass premise, and it's just obvious with the rule of fucking storytelling, is you have a setup, right, of the babies steal the baby, the goblins steal the baby, and Ruby saves the baby. But it's to set up the coincidence so then they can steal Ruby, who's a bigger event and it's tastier. While we set up in the episode that the Doctor also is a foundling baby. So you'd think the idea would be is they only stole Ruby to set up, going back even further, to steal the Doctor as a baby.
That's not terrible. I'm gonna throw a little bit of a wrench in the gears your premise here, in that the fucking ship got impaled on a goddamn church.
I'm saying, right, because it just kind of fades away. I'm saying maybe not the goblins themselves, but some fucker. I think that's gonna be a Davies fucking reveal. I think he's gonna go all the way back to who dropped the Doctor off, and it's gonna parallel how Ruby gets dropped off and we don't see her mom or whatever the fuck. Because if that was just meant to be left as is, I know how Davies works. I know his fucking season arcs. He invented that shit. He's not leaving that undone. He doesn't have. He is going back to that at some point. And my theory is we're gonna go all the way back to fucking Gallifrey and when the Doctor got dropped off, and it's gonna be resolved as part of the setup here.
That'd be
God, I hope
interesting.
not.
I mean, again, I don't have a problem with the foundling thing for the Doctor. I think that's genuinely interesting and cool. It's just all the stuff around it that sucks ass.
Yeah, the Doctor being a foundling inherently is not a problem. I just sort of feel like at a certain point too, you probably do want to just like
Just let
keep
it die.
moving forward and
Yeah.
let it go. Yeah, like you can.
Damn it, Steve.
These
Steve, come
fuckers
back.
really are trying to get us, Ian. You've got to save us, Ian! Ian!
Oh, hey, the Goblin King, hey, the Goblin King. Such a great pleasure to meet you, you great big thing. Da 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 da. Steve and Alfie, please come back.
Steve, please say it worked. D. He's the Goblin King. He's an actual thing. Steve, please.
Oh no, we lost Steve. Steve did warn us that he might not be here all night because of storms and stuff, but like, what seems more likely to you, dear listener, that Steve's having trouble with Wi-Fi because of a thunderstorm and tornado warning, or because he's being stolen by goblins? Leave your answer in the comments down below. Oh well.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Oh wow. What were we talking about, Ian?
Singing, dropping rhymes for the Goblin King.
Yeah, I don't know, man. We've only two people doing this show. It's just, it feels like I don't get why we keep it up,
Yeah.
It's just like it's just been me and you for so long.
Yeah, it's just the two of us. I mean, it's kind of like really worn out its welcome. I don't understand why we never had a third person on to help us, carry the conversation going.
We were never so blessed.
We were never so blessed. That scene's so fucking sad, though. I don't understand how you can't just the. I never wanted a daughter. This baby. I was looking forward to my holiday. Mom's asleep by 3. Oh my god, it's just so she's just such a bitter fucking person. And her whole life's just changed. She went from being so happy and so pleasant and this fucking Bob Cratchit level energy to just becoming Scrooge. And it's so sad.
I get it. I do like the beat. I do like the performance in isolation. I think it's just something that's let down a little bit by the structure of it, but I don't think it's Davies, right? You can fucking nail those things all day.
Yeah. What do you think of the Doctor flirting with an old lady, though?
Oh, I love that. That was the thing that I was more fucking hooked by, this poor sweet old lady getting her goddamn cup of tea. She was so sweet and so patient about that fucking cup of tea that I was legitimately cheering when she finally got. I was like, oh, thank God. So that was probably one of my favorite little gags. I love that recurring bit. I thought it was fantastic. And how Shooty could fucking flirt with a phone book at this point. You could just look at it the right way and the phone book would sweat,
I just fucking love the reaction shot she has after he leaves the room that first time. And she's like, she's just so fucking smitten. It's so cute.
It's extremely cute. I'm all for this, because he got a lot of flack when we had Tennant kiss people and do any of this. I feel like Davies is fully enjoying getting to write, because he used to get away with that with Captain Jack, right? That was his outlet for that impulse of sexy immortal. But now he can just have the Doctor be that, and I think that's kind of he's earned the fact of you know what, the Doctor's been Capaldi, he's been Smith, he's grew out of his awkward I don't know what to do with women phase. Now he's just all about it. Now he's just fucking cruising. He's back to being like McGann, where McGann was just throwing down with fucking everyone.
You're not prepared for this. For what? The Doctor has Riz.
He's Riz. Riz Doctor. It's a genius take, unironically. It's so fresh. It was exactly what they needed.
I can't wait to see the Doctor fucking seduce a Dalek.
Oh my god, please. If there's a fucking... If go back to fucking... What was it, name? Like, Handles? No, it was that. Rusty. One of the Dalek that was, like, the end of the universe one.
Oh, yep,
He goes back, and he's like, you know, me and Rusty kind of got a little closer. Like, It's like, I did everything to a Dalek before. At least I thought I did everything to a Dalek.
Oh, man. Now, this is like the point where I do really hope that, I know that like the actors cause a lot of fucking controversy, but I don't know, I'm losing my ability to care about this to a certain extent. But it would be fun to see the Doctor that's a fucking flirt come back and get to interact with Captain Jack. Fuck it, recast him if you want. It doesn't matter.
I mean, we know eventually he's gonna turn into a giant fucking head.
In a jar, right? So like you could just recast him.
The precedent is there for him looking different.
Yeah. If the actor's like the big controversy, it's whatever. Just fucking recast. I've like so lost interest for anything that argues not to just recast people. So I don't know. That'd be fun.
Especially in Doctor Who of all things, like the show's built on recasting characters.
Oh, let me ask you this. Since I think we're mostly done talking about the episode in and of itself, what is the obviously we're always excited for new things, and I love that the goblins were a new thing. That was really cool to just get a completely new, unique monster for the show. But what is a recurring character villain that you're most excited to see 15 face off against?
Like I said before, I really want Daleks, but specifically, I want to get rid of the new Who Daleks that we've had since I just don't want to see those guys ever again. I love that design. I think it's great, but my god, they've looked like that since fucking 2005. It's been 20 years. Like, I really, 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 really want there's been so many like great fan recreations and stuff of like Dalek redesigns I've seen with like metallic reds and fucking blacks and blues and shit. Like, I don't want to go back to the classic, but I want something I want a new Dalek. And Davies is the best Dalek writer. So he's what makes me excited for that, because his Daleks, we've never had better Daleks than when he wrote them. So something with that, with Ncuti, with a Doctor who's got over the Time War, basically, going up against his oldest enemy. Like, how does that change the dynamic? What do the Daleks have to be now for this Doctor to justify being their greatest enemy? Or is it going to be they aren't anymore, and now there's something else and they can fill a different role, instead of having that pressure of every Dalek needs to be like the biggest thing? And, you know, kind of there's some errors on Batman where the Joker is the biggest thing, is the modern version. If you go to the 80s or the 90s, he's just kind of a villain. Like, he just teamed up with Scarecrow in Nightfall and they had a good time. Like, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I'd kind of like if the Daleks maybe went to that direction, or if we gave them a little mix of both, might be interesting. So Daleks is my number one. And my number two, if I had any pie in the sky, could make anything happen, I really would like Clara or River to interact with Ncuti, just because they were the people that are probably the horniest for the Doctor. And I would like for them to interact with a Doctor who's so rizzed up, because I think they wouldn't be as into it. I think now that he's not hard to get by, it would be like a different dynamic. Well, they're a little bit more like, whoa, I'm supposed to be the forward one. Like, I think that would be pretty funny to interact with. River Song, maybe not as much, because we kind of end her thing, but I think you could get with Clara, because we know she's still around in the universe and shit.
You still have the weirdest take on Clara for me, and I don't know what to think of it.
I just like her, man.
No, I mean, I like Clara too, but you're like really gung-ho, and you're the only one I've seen interpret it that like Clara and 12 slept together, and I just don't get it.
It's not just with 12 but just like, I like the idea of she basically became like the mini Doctor. And I think that'd be interesting versus this Doctor who's healed all his wounds to meet like someone who was so heavily influenced by like his worst self. I think that'd be pretty powerful.
Maybe. I don't know. I just find it like you've
it's
made
different,
the take
right? No one
that like
else,
Clara
no one else
really
says
wants
it,
to
yeah.
fuck the Doctor, and I'm like, there's a whole like bit where she's like, "I'm not your boyfriend, Clara. I never thought you were. I never said it was your mistake." And then you're just like, "Oh yeah, Clara and 12 slept together," and I'm like, "What?"
Absolutely.
Strangest fucking take I've ever heard. All right. Well, I think we're good on this. I think Steve's not coming back. I think the goblins got him. And you know, I think we're better off for it. You know, what fucking good would a third host on this show ever be? I'm just excited for my day off. Alfie's asleep by 3. And I get to...
Absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Just want my goddamn tea, man. That's the universal constant. I want my fucking cup of tea.
Anyway, what do we want to talk about next time? You've not been on for a hot minute, Alfie. So why don't you pick a thing to talk about next time? Can be a review, can be a discussion. It's up to you.
What do I want to talk about? I guess because it's timely, because Ultimate Spider-Man, the new thing comes out this week. Not necessarily like, because we've talked about superhero reboots and stuff before, but like the idea of like an Ultimate universe, like specifically like a modern, realistic take on that kind of thing for like Marvel or DC, and like what we'd like to see in things or what has been done. That like the Earth One books kind of fit that vibe, right? Like that type of trope with not just with comics, but just in general, I think could be pretty interesting.
Sure, sounds like a good time.
So just like old geeky gentleman ultimate universes, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that works. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the champion of missing Steve.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things. Why are you crying?